Good evening and welcome to the Hamilton Report. Today is the first day of February 2021. I'm Scott J. Hamilton, the Executive Director of the Oklahoma Democratic Party, and I'm so happy that you are with us this evening. It's always wonderful that you invite us into your home for half an hour on Monday evenings or whenever you're able to catch this show later on. And I just want to mention that if you have friends that you would like to share this with, by all means, just direct them to okdemocrats.org/YouTube or to the party's Facebook page, and they can catch up on this episode or any episode prior to this one. This evening is an important broadcast, and it's one that I'm grateful that you tuned into. I truly am, because this is something that could have dire consequences for people around the state of Oklahoma. My guest this evening is someone that I'm honored to have with us. She has proven herself to be a true Renaissance woman. She was an Oklahoma City police officer and then became a writer. I'm going to show you a couple of her books. One is Shadow Boxer, which is just an incredible tale it's a memoir to a degree, but it's also a wonderful piece of fiction, and I can't recommend it enough. Another one of her pieces is Dirty Laundry. It's a collection of short stories that I also loved very much. And now she is working as a social worker. She continues to write, but went back to school to earn an MSW. I'm grateful that she is with us this evening. It's my privilege to welcome to the Hamilton Report my friend, Paula Sophia. Paula, welcome to this evening.
Hi, how are you doing, Scott?
I'm well. It's great to see you. You doing okay tonight?
Yeah, I'm doing well. Thank you.
You know, I introduced you a moment ago as a Renaissance woman because you just do keep broadening your horizons and the things that you're working on. And the reason we had you on tonight, it was real important to me to reach out to you first when I read about this bill, because you became an activist a bit by accident. I mean, it was not your intention to be an activist, but that certainly has become an important part of your resume. And I just want to take a moment to say thank you. I appreciate all the work that you have done, not just for the LGBTQ community in Oklahoma, but for Oklahomans in general. You have been a powerful voice of education and continue to be. So just on a very personal note, thank you. Thank you for all that you have done, and thanks for being with us tonight.
Well, thank you, Scott. I'm glad to be here.
You know, it's the legislative session began just today. And already we are faced with some pretty horrendous bills. I'm not even just talking about the Bigfoot hunting season that one legislator wants to put in place, and things as seemingly silly and innocuous as those may be. But tonight I'm talking about something that has potentially lethal consequences to young people in our state. And a lawmaker who shares my surname, and I promise you we are not related, has introduced legislation that would prohibit any physician or medical provider for providing gender-affirming medical treatment to anyone under the age of 21. Not only would it punish the young person, but also parents of anyone under 21 and physicians. In fact, this proposed legislation goes so far as to say that a doctor or a medical practitioner could, in fact, face up to life in prison for doing their job. And this frightens me no end, because as so many people have said, this can be so powerfully important for a young trans person to get the medical help that they need. Paula, what was your first reaction when you heard about this bill?
Well, one of the things that I realized was, this bill isn't really about protecting kids, and then the fact that they're trying to make this about being 21 years old instead of 18, makes me think that this is a double-edged sword that they're playing here, is that they're not really just aiming at children. They know that by the age of 21, someone, you know, is maturing more after puberty, and that particularly for people assigned male at birth and who reach the age of 21, the masculine effects of testosterone have taken effect in a way that some of the development is irreversible. And then at the same time, they criticize trans women for looking like men in dresses, and criticize us for not being able to pass. So it's really trying to erase us. And as the GOP tends to do, is they're trying to make this look like they're protecting children.
I want to say, this is from definitive authority. This is the American Academy of Pediatrics. And they've said the decision of whether and when to initiate gender affirmative treatments is personal and involves careful consideration of risks, benefits, and other factors unique to each patient and family. That, in a nutshell, they're saying that this decision does not belong with the state legislature or any governing body, but it belongs to the child, the child's parents, and the physicians involved. And so here we have a very respected medical organization saying that this is an important thing to be doing, and yet now potentially this could become unlawful to treat a young trans person in Oklahoma. One of the things that I've read about puberty blocking treatments is that it's a very, very effective way for a young person to continue to explore and understand their gender identity. But if we take that opportunity away from them, then what you said, sometimes the results are irreversibly damaging.
Well, some of the things that are gender specific about maturing as a male, or particularly the Adam's apple, the growth spurt, the muscular stature, the those kinds of effects, they take place during male puberty, and then it makes it difficult for many people who experience high degrees of gender dysphoria earlier in life to make a smoother transition. So I'm not in the business of trying to tell parents what to do. As the quote that you shared, it's a personal decision, but it should be left up to the families and to the children and to the physicians, with full knowledge of what the risks are, and then also with as far as this goes, and I just like to reiterate that they want to be able to, as much as possible, spot trans people, or trans women in particular, because they've raised alarms about trans women being dangerous, and they want to be able to point the finger and say, look, this is someone, and call it perversion, and this is one of the ways that ensures it, in my opinion.
Paula, how old were you when you went to Iraq?
I was 24.
Okay, you were 24 when you went into the service?
No, I enlisted when I was 18.
That's what I was thinking. And Elizabeth Britt raises a great point. She says she's got to understand the 21-year-old. Why not 18 if the focus is on kids? The government has no right to govern anyone else's body. And I couldn't agree more. You've said as much just now. Something is terribly wrong with this. And I should point out that this is hardly the only bill of its kind in the country right now. The language is very similar. So I don't know who is sponsoring this legislation, who's writing it, but clearly it's smack dab in the middle of this legislative session, Paula.
And like I said, the 20, what Elizabeth points out, the 21-year-old thing is they're trying to make sure that that people have to mature in their assigned gender at birth as much as possible to make it harder to transition, and thus try to encourage more people to have to live with gender dysphoria for longer periods of time without being able to do anything about it. And they're trying to make sure that trans people can be seen, and if they're not able to be seen, then not ever transition at all, and thus make us invisible. And that's one of the things that I'm concerned about, that 21-year-old issue. I've never seen a bill like this that raises the age of consent on a medical procedure that high.
No, I haven't either, and I do find it very, very troubling. The Human Rights Watch said that this is an extreme bill. They called it draconian, which it certainly is, and they say that taking autonomy away from young adults is part of a worrying larger trend, which is, as I pointed out a moment ago, this is something we're seeing in other parts of the country right now, and certainly it's gaining some traction. Where is the fear, Paula? I mean, we talk about transphobia, and the phobia part in and of itself has to do with fear. Please, can you give me any sense at all of why people are so afraid and why they would go to such lengths to continue this kind of thing that we've known for a very long time is harmful to young people?
Well, it's complex and it's cultural, Scott. The fear, in my opinion, comes a lot from the culture surrounding that's come in the last half of the 20th century and up and until even present times. The movie Disclosure really covers this well, about how trans people are portrayed, about gender variant people are portrayed, or how deviant people use gender variant expressions to be able to commit crimes. And from my investigation, the fear starts with a murderer from Wisconsin in 1957, Ed Gein, who killed two women and then took their skins and was putting them on a clothes horse. And then he dug some women up from the grave, and he took their skins. And when they discovered, connected what was going on with him, his house was full of stuff that you'd see out of Silence of the Lambs. Alfred Hitchcock read that story and he thought, hey, this is something really cool. And thus we have Psycho. And Psycho, of course, Norman Bates dresses up like his mother. And then in the 1970s, you have Dressed to Kill with Angie Dickinson. And then in the 1980s, Sleepaway Camp. And then there's just a host of it in the 1990s with Silence of the Lambs, which terrified me personally. And we keep getting these, even up until today, these reaffirmations of fear. These reaffirmations that people who are gender variant are predatory, people who are, and this feeds into it. And then unfortunately, J.K. Rowling's in a pseudonym that she uses portrays a serial killer who cross-dresses to entice victims. So here we go, this trope over and over and over again. And that, I think, is creating this fear and this distrust, because they filmmakers and storytellers and writers have used a gender variant expression, portraying it as deviance and as predatory, and it affects trans women particularly hard. And then there's this fear that is coming up with the people who are gender critical, that butch lesbians are going away, that people assigned female at birth are going to this, instead of being butch lesbian, they're going to be go ahead and transition to become transgender men, and that's this rapid onset gender dysphoria crowd that's doing this, and they're trying to generate fear, and they're spouting out statistics like there's in schools that have gay straight alliances that feature trans people. After a year, the trans people involved in this group double or triple. But what they're not telling you is that it starts off that the statistics show that it's maybe 1 or 2 students, and then after it's been there for a while, 3 or 4 students, and it makes it seem like it's a pandemic or an epidemic of young females who want to transition into men, and erasing lesbians. And I've never seen the religious right or conservative people so worried about the loss of lesbians in my life until the debate about rapid onset gender.
I appreciate you lightening things up a little bit. But you mentioned epidemic or pandemic. Sadly, the epidemic is with suicide.
Yes.
And so many young trans people are at the highest risk of suicide of any cohort in our society.
Yeah.
And one of our viewers had this to say: this proposal is disgusting. What will legislators do when suicide rates go up because of this? Well, the answer is nothing. They don't care. What they're caring about is stirring things up now. To hell with the consequences, and there will be consequences. We know that a child that has good quality medical care and supportive parents from let's go 18 down. I mean, pick an age down. We know that they have much greater success of living their real lives. And I also want to point this out. This bill does not specifically talk about just gender affirmation surgery. As a matter of fact, he's saying anything. So that means hormone replacement therapy. It means puberty blockers. It means anything other than mental health counseling. And Lord only can imagine what that might look like in this man's thinking. But would you talk a little bit, please, about the danger of suicide for young trans people?
According to a study that was put out by the National Center for Transgender Equality in 2015, and then there's an update coming out too. So, but this is 2015 statistics that that as high as 41% of people who identify as trans or non-binary have attempted suicide or have been suicidal at least once in their lifetime.
Paula, underscore that again. 41%.
Yes,
that's enormous.
It's enormous. Yeah, that's almost half of everybody who has something other than a binary gender identity. That's approaching.
I'm not asking anyone to understand or anyone to like lesbians, gay men, bisexual, transgender, queer, questioning, asexual. You don't have to understand anything within this group to have compassion. And the only way you can really show compassion is not to produce this kind of legislation to start with. Who can think that there's anything that will be good comes out of this? I don't see that there's any upside, because first of all, it's going to be found unconstitutional. We know that. But how many hundreds of thousands of dollars is Oklahoma willing to spend to fight this, in the courts, still only to lose? How many people could we help, Paula, as a social worker? How many people could we help transition successfully with those dollars?
Well, it depends because that there's still not in Oklahoma public funds available to help people even access counseling if they're diagnosed as a gender dysphoria. There's still not the network of insurance companies that would be able to help people go through their transitions, although that's getting better and it depends on where you work. But as far as Oklahomans go, this is accessing services and accessing treatment is very difficult. And so, yeah, there's a lot that could happening to expand services that are helping young queer identified people be able to, one, find support through counseling and group work, and then two, if they're if they have access to doctors who are knowledgeable about treatment for transgender people, that way they can make their decisions and understanding what the consequences are and what the results could be, and then move on with their lives with the choice.
Paula, what would you say to the parents of a child? The parents, this is new to them. They're not quite sure what to do. And then they see they're making progress in their lives with their child, with their family. And then they say a law like this. What advice would you give to the parents?
Well, the children know who they are. Okay, they by Kohlberg's model, that by the age of 3, children have a basic understanding of their gender identity, and they know themselves as boys or girls. Moving on to later in 3 and 4 years old, they have that they become more gender consistent, that they understand that they're going to be boys or girls pretty much permanently, but they might think that if they put on a dress, they turn into a girl, or if someone squirts perfume on them, they might turn into a girl, or vice versa. And then from the ages of 5 to 7, generally children come to a point of what is called gender constancy. By the age of 5 or 7, children, that's kindergarten to 1st to 2nd grade. Children have a fixed gender identity pretty much, so they know who they are. I'll share a personal thing about myself. By the age of 9, I realized that I was stuck being a boy, and I despaired, and I attempted suicide for the first time at the age of 9. And it was not a lethal method because I didn't really know how to do it, but it was an earnest attempt in my mind. And by the age of 10, I was in a hospital, and initially because of pains that I was experiencing because I was beat up a lot, and then later for psychiatric examination, where I was asked if I thought I should have been born a girl, and I was scared to death to tell the truth, because this was back in 1976, because I thought I would never have gotten out of the hospital if I'd have said yes. So I got a strong, clear message by then that the world expected me to be a boy, and that if I wasn't going to get beat up or hospitalized or picked on, or if I wanted to try to make something of my life, that I'd had to be a boy. And that's what I started to do. I tried my hardest. From then on, I started playing sports. I started expressing interest in the military, and then when I was old enough, joined the military, etc., became a police officer, the rest. But significant crisis that I had at the age of 9 and 10 years old began as a despair. I'm trapped. That's my personal story. Some other people, I've read many other accounts. I've talked to many other people. They experience similar patterns in their lives, and this is across socioeconomic um, socioeconomic differences. This is across cultures. I've read stories and then corresponded with people in different cultures. One young woman from Turkey who experienced similar things in her life at the same times.
Hmm.
So this is more than a cultural influence or something wrong. It's with the way that children are raised. This is something innate within ourselves, and it's within our rights, and it's within parents' rights to help their children seek relief.
You know, this same lawmaker is proposing legislation that would prohibit local municipalities from having a mask mandate or vaccination requirements. And so he clearly thinks he can have it both ways. The GOP is committed to talking about abortion, to talking about LGBTQ people in an effort to keep people stirred up, providing disinformation and straight up lies. I'm tired of the word disinformation. There's no such thing as disinformation. It's just a bunch of lies. And so what you just shared with us, Paula, your own experience as a child, that's heartbreaking. Thankfully, you have been able to navigate a series of systems so that today you are well adjusted. You are in a happy, committed marriage. You have wonderful children, but not everyone is so lucky. And so, what would you have our viewers do? What steps would you have us take to help make sure that this legislation goes nowhere?
Well, it's more than just calling your legislature. It's more than sending them letters and emails and things like that. It's really kind of showing up at their doors and talking to them. It's also for as many people as can manage it, and it's very difficult to be really open about who we are as people, as trans people. But as many people as can manage it, be open about who we are and let people get to know us. I mean, until this, Scott, until the people in the gay and lesbian and bisexual community started being out and open about who they were, the progress for their rights, for your rights and for your political advancement didn't really start happening with earnestness. And I think as trans people, we have the same kind of a maturation process, and that's happening more and more. We have a lot of young people who are vibrant and who are focused on being authentic, and they have strong voices and strong opinions, and they're going to go out there and assert them. And I'm really proud of that because we need that. It felt like a long time ago that I was the only one speaking up for a long time, and then all of a sudden all these other voices started coming around, and I'm really happy to see them. And I think that right now they're more passionate, and then the culture is more accepting than it was 20 years ago. And even though it's hostile in some ways politically, because we've become a political football, but therein is a mechanism to address the issues, be out and authentic as who we are, and then let people get to know us so that they can't rely so easily on those old predatory tropes, the lesbian vanishing tropes that are being put out there by people who are, gender critical or the religious right or others.
you're talking about the young people today, and I just need to say this, that I recognize that a lot of them would not have a voice were it not for you and for a handful of people like you here in Oklahoma. And so I'm so grateful for all that you have done. You have been generous in this conversation by not calling out people in the LGBTQ community. And I'm going to do this not on your behalf. You don't need me to speak for you, but I'm doing this to say, for too long, gay men, lesbians, and bisexual people, we have not done a good job supporting, lifting up, and working on behalf of our trans sisters and brothers. And that's got to change. We have got to use our voices. It's not enough that we got ours, that we've made some advances. We have to keep that moving. We must keep that moving, because Paula just outlined for us what trans folks need to be doing. You know, being out, being present, showing the world that they are good folks. But it goes beyond that. No movement ever happens only because of the people within that movement. It takes other people outside. And Paula, the time has really gotten away from us this evening, but we're going to be watching this bill, and I hope that you and I will watch it progress together. And as you see opportunities for the Oklahoma Democratic Party to say anything that would help impact this in a positive way, let me know. And we will be keeping an eye on it. And again, I'm so grateful for you, for the person that you are, for the work that you've done. And I'm also very grateful for your friendship. So thank you for all of that. And thank you for being with us tonight.
Thank you, Scott. You have a good evening.
You too. Well, friends, you can tell that this I'm pretty passionate about this, and I hope that you are too. As Democrats, as caring people, we have got to do better in this state. If we just keep on recycling anti-trans bills and abortion legislation, all while, you'll love this. Today, in his State of the State address, Governor Stitt said that the pillar of this legislative session is personal and religious freedoms of Oklahomans. Can someone please explain to me how this type of legislation furthers the freedoms of Oklahomans? It does not. It absolutely does not. And so you can't have it both ways, Republicans. You cannot proclaim one thing out of one side of your mouth and then do something very, very different, something that stands to harm many people. If you don't care about all Oklahomans, then you have no business in the state legislature or representing anyone other than yourself. So there, I said what was on my mind, and I'm not going to stop talking about this, because this is the kind of thing that keeps Oklahoma in the backwoods, in the dark ages, that makes us the laughing stock of the rest of this country. I've had it, and I hope that you have too. And together we can affect positive change. That being said, we need your financial assistance. The Oklahoma Democratic Party is working every day to register more people to vote as Democrats. We are working every day to work with candidates who will serve the needs of Oklahomans, all Oklahomans. And we can't do any of this without your support. So I hope that you will please consider making a contribution. You can do it anytime, day or night, at okdemocrats.org. You can donate right from the homepage of our website. Want to mention that next week on the Hamilton Report, my special guest will be House Minority Leader Emily Virgin. She will be here looking at what lies ahead for the 2021 legislative session. And if tonight has given you any indication of what we're in for, buckle your seatbelts. It's going to be a rough ride, but together we can make it through. I'm grateful that you spent the evening with us, and I hope that you will share this broadcast with your family and friends. Share it on your Facebook page, any other social media platforms. because the more people that know about the harm that's being done at the hands of Republicans, the sooner we can effect positive change for ourselves, our children, and for generations to come. I hope to see you next week here on the Hamilton Report. And don't forget to tune in every day at 4:15 for our chair's daily live update on issues critical to Democrats here in Oklahoma. Thank you for watching us on behalf of all of us at the Hamilton Report and the Oklahoma Democratic Party. I'm Scott J. Hamilton. Have a great evening.